If you have diabetes or need to control your blood sugar, you've probably already heard that butter is a better choice than many vegetable oils. And in part that's true. The problem is that not all butter is the same, and many brands sold in supermarkets in the United States contain ingredients that can worsen inflammation, insulin resistance, and blood sugar control, even without declared sugar on the label. In today's video, I'm going to show you 7 butter brands that diabetics should avoid at all costs, not by opinion, but because of the actual product composition. And in the end, I'll show you 2 better, cleaner, and safer alternatives for those who need to take care of their glucose. Country Crock, Original and Buttery Spread. Country Crock is one of the most consumed brands in the United States because many people believe they are buying butter. But the truth is that Country Crock is not real butter. It is a highly processed spread, made mainly from refined vegetable oils, not milk cream, which is the basic ingredient of traditional butter. For diabetics, this is already the first major problem. Refined vegetable oils, such as soybean oil, canola oil, or palm oil, are fats that undergo intense industrial processes. These processes alter the structure of the fat and can contribute to metabolic inflammation, something that makes blood sugar control difficult over time, even when the product does not contain declared sugar on the label. Another important point is that Country Crock often contains emulsifiers, flavorings, and stabilizers. These ingredients do not exist to nourish the body, but to improve texture, taste, and appearance. In people with diabetes, frequent consumption of ultra-processed foods is associated with worse insulin sensitivity, which means the body has more difficulty dealing with carbohydrates consumed throughout the day. Furthermore, this type of spread does not generate the same sense of satiety as butter made only from milk cream. In practice, this can lead to a dangerous indirect effect. The person uses more of it on bread, rice, or other foods, and ends up consuming more carbohydrates without realizing it. For diabetics, this repeated behavior can result in more frequent blood sugar spikes. Finally, it's important to understand that the problem with Country Crock is not just the absence of sugar, but the quality of the fat and the level of processing. Many diabetics focus only on the number of grams of sugar on the label and end up ignoring ingredients that, in the long run, can disrupt metabolic balance. That's why this brand makes the list of products that diabetics should avoid at all costs. I Can't Believe It's Not Butter. I Can't Believe It's Not Butter is one of the most well-known and oldest brands on the market, and precisely because of this many people consume it without questioning. The name creates the feeling that the product is almost the same as traditional butter, but in practice, it is far from that. Like other spreads, this brand is composed mainly of ultra-processed vegetable oils, not natural milk fat. For diabetics, the main problem starts with the type of fat used. Refined vegetable oils undergo intense chemical and thermal processes, which can result in less stable fats. Frequent consumption of these fats is associated with chronic low-grade inflammation, a factor that can worsen insulin resistance and make blood sugar control difficult over time. Another important point is that this brand contains an extensive list of artificial ingredients, including emulsifiers, dyes, and flavorings. These additives provide no nutritional value and exist only to mimic the taste and texture of real butter. For people with diabetes, a diet rich in ultra-processed foods is often associated with greater blood sugar instability, even when products have no visible sugar. Moreover, I Can't Believe It's Not Butter is often perceived as a lighter or healthier option, which leads many people to use larger amounts without guilt. This behavior may seem harmless, but for diabetics it is dangerous, because it increases total consumption of low-quality fat and encourages consumption of carbohydrate-rich foods, such as bread and toast. Finally, it is essential to understand that the impact of this type of product does not happen overnight. The problem arises with constant use, day after day. For those living with diabetes, small repeated decisions over time make a big difference in glucose control. That's why, despite its popularity and strong marketing, I Can't Believe It's Not Butter is a brand that diabetics should avoid at all costs. Parquet Margarine. Parquet Margarine is a classic brand in the United States and has been present in millions of homes for decades. Precisely because it is old and familiar, many people assume that it is a safe option. However, Parquet is not butter, but a highly processed margarine, made mainly of refined vegetable oils. For diabetics, the central problem is again in the quality of the fat. Margarines like Parquet are formulated to be cheap, stable, and last a long time on the shelf. To do this, they use vegetable oils that undergo intense industrial processes. This type of fat can contribute to systemic inflammation, a factor that is directly linked to worsening insulin sensitivity over time. Another important point is that parquet contains artificial additives, such as emulsifiers and flavorings, that help mimic the taste of butter. These ingredients do not appear as sugar on the label, but are part of the group of substances that characterize ultra-processed foods. For people with diabetes, frequent consumption of this type of product is associated with greater difficulty in maintaining stable glucose levels, especially when combined with refined carbohydrates. Moreover, because it is a light margarine and easy to spread, parquet tends to be used in large quantities. Many people spread margarine on bread, cook with it, and still use it in recipes, all on the same day. For diabetics, this repeated use of low-quality fat can lead to greater caloric intake without satiety, which indirectly favors blood sugar spikes. Finally, it is important to note that the biggest mistake when consuming parquet is not just the product itself, but the false sense of security it offers. Because it does not contain visible sugar and is sold as an alternative to butter, many diabetics believe there is no risk. But when we look at the composition and level of processing, it becomes clear why this is a brand that diabetics should avoid at all costs. Blue Bonnet. Blue Bonnet is a brand that many consumers choose for its affordable price and availability in virtually all large supermarkets in the United States. For diabetics, this convenience factor often weighs heavily. However, when we analyze the product composition, it becomes clear that Blue Bonnet is much closer to an industrial margarine than to real butter. The main ingredient of Blue Bonnet is a combination of refined vegetable oils, developed to ensure long shelf life and stable texture. For people with diabetes, frequent consumption of this type of fat can contribute to metabolic inflammation, which makes blood sugar control more difficult over time. Even if the product contains no added sugar, the indirect impact on insulin sensitivity is an important point of concern. Another critical aspect is the presence of artificial additives, such as emulsifiers, preservatives, and flavorings. These ingredients help standardize taste and appearance, but offer no nutritional benefit. In diets aimed at blood sugar control, highly processed foods are often associated with less predictable glycemic responses, especially when consumed habitually. Moreover, the soft texture of Blue Bonnet facilitates excessive use. Many people use this margarine at breakfast, in meal preparation, and even in baking recipes, without realizing the total amount consumed throughout the day. For diabetics, this pattern can result in greater intake of low-quality fat, without the satiety that more natural butter usually offers, which favors extra carbohydrate consumption. Finally, the biggest problem with Blue Bonnet is the combination of low cost, high processing, and false sense of security. Because it is cheap and widely used for years, many diabetics consume it automatically, without reading the label. But when the goal is to take care of glucose and metabolic health, this is exactly the type of product that should be avoided at all costs. Imperial Margarine. Imperial Margarine is one of the cheapest and oldest brands on the American market, which makes it present in many homes purely as a matter of economy. For diabetics, this factor may seem irrelevant at first, but the problem begins when we analyze what really makes up this product. Imperial is not butter, it is a highly processed margarine, formulated almost entirely from refined vegetable oils. These oils undergo intense industrial processes to become solid, stable, and with long shelf life. For people with diabetes, frequent consumption of this type of fat is associated with chronic low-grade inflammation, a factor that can harm insulin sensitivity over time. Even without visible sugar on the label, this indirect effect can make blood sugar control more difficult. Another important point is the extensive list of artificial ingredients present in Imperial Margarine. Emulsifiers, stabilizers, and flavorings are used to create taste and texture similar to real butter. For diabetics, regular consumption of ultra-processed foods like this is often linked to greater instability in blood sugar levels, especially when combined with carbohydrate-rich foods. Moreover, because it is extremely soft and easy to spread, Imperial tends to be used in large quantities, often without the person noticing. This excessive use reduces the sense of satiety and can lead to greater intake of bread, toast, and other carbohydrates, which increases the risk of blood sugar spikes throughout the day. Finally, Imperial Margarine represents one of the clearest examples of false food economy. The low price may seem advantageous in the short term, but the metabolic cost for those living with diabetes can be high when consumption becomes frequent. That's why this is a brand that diabetics should avoid at all costs. Land O'Lakes Butter Spread. Land O'Lakes is a traditional and highly respected brand in the United States, especially when it comes to real butter. Precisely because of this, many consumers assume that any product with this name is automatically a good choice. The problem is that Land O'Lakes butter spread is not pure butter, and this difference is extremely important for those who need to control blood sugar. This product is a mixture of butter with refined vegetable oils, created to facilitate spreadability and reduce costs. For diabetics, this combination is problematic because it introduces highly processed fats into a food that could be simple. Refined vegetable oils are associated with inflammatory processes, which can negatively affect insulin sensitivity over time. Another critical point is that, by carrying the name butter, this product creates a false sense of security. Many people believe they are consuming real butter and end up using the product more frequently, even in the preparation of hot meals. For diabetics, this excessive confidence can lead to regular consumption of low-quality fats without realizing it. Furthermore, butter spreads generally contain emulsifiers and stabilizers to maintain uniform texture. These ingredients do not appear as sugar on the label, but are part of the group of additives that characterize ultra-processed foods. Diets rich in this type of product are often associated with greater difficulty in blood sugar control, especially when combined with refined carbohydrates. Finally, the biggest problem with Land O'Lakes butter spread is that it occupies a dangerous space between two worlds. It is not real butter, but it is also not a simple food. For diabetics, this type of hybrid product is usually a worse choice than choosing a butter with clean ingredients and moderate use. That's why it makes the list of brands that should be avoided at all costs. Country Crock Plant Butter. Country Crock Plant Butter is often chosen by people who believe they are making a healthier choice by being a plant-based product. For diabetics, this type of label usually conveys security. However, when we analyze the composition, it becomes clear that being plant-based does not mean it is a good option for glucose control. This version is made mainly of refined vegetable oils, such as canola oil and palm oil, combined with additives to create texture and taste similar to butter. For diabetics, frequent consumption of this type of fat can contribute to metabolic inflammation, a factor that is associated with worse insulin sensitivity over time, even without declared sugar on the label. Another important problem is the high level of processing. To transform liquid oils into a solid and spreadable product, the industry uses industrial techniques and artificial ingredients. Diets rich in ultra-processed foods are often associated with less stable glycemic responses, which can make daily blood sugar control more difficult. Moreover, because it is sold as a modern and lighter alternative, Country Crock Plant Butter tends to be used with less caution. Many people use it on bread, toast, cooking, and recipes, all on the same day. For diabetics, this pattern can result in greater consumption of low-quality fat, without adequate satiety, which favors excessive carbohydrate consumption. Finally, the biggest mistake in choosing this product is trusting the plant-based marketing and ignoring the label. For diabetics, the focus should not be on whether the fat is vegetable or animal, but on how processed it is and what ingredients it really contains. That's why Country Crock Plant Butter comes as the last brand that diabetics should avoid at all costs. 2 better alternatives for diabetics. Kerrygold Pure Irish Butter. Kerrygold Pure Irish Butter is often considered one of the best butters available in supermarkets in the United States, and this is not just marketing. The main difference starts with the ingredient list, which is extremely simple. Basically milk cream and, in some versions, salt. For diabetics, this simplicity is a great positive point. Unlike margarines and butter spreads, Kerrygold does not contain refined vegetable oils, emulsifiers, or artificial additives. This means less industrial processing and fat closer to its natural form. For those who need to control blood sugar, diets with less processed foods tend to be associated with better metabolic stability over time. Another important point is the quality of the fat. Kerrygold is made from the milk of cows raised predominantly on pasture, which results in a different fat profile compared to common industrial butters. Although butter should still be consumed in moderation, this superior quality can help increase satiety, making people use less quantity and reduce excessive consumption of carbohydrates like bread and toast. Moreover, because it is a butter with more intense flavor and richer texture, many people realize they need less product to get the same taste. For diabetics, this behavioral detail is important, because small reductions in daily consumption can make a difference in blood sugar control over time. Finally, it is important to emphasize that Kerrygold is not a miracle food. The point is not to consume butter freely, but rather to choose options with clean ingredients and use in moderation. Within this context, Kerrygold Pure Irish Butter stands out as a better and more conscious alternative for diabetics compared to highly processed brands. Organic Valley Grass Milk Butter. Organic Valley Grass Milk Butter is another alternative that stands out clearly when it comes to clean ingredients and lower level of processing. Like Kerrygold, this butter has a simple composition, made basically of organic milk cream and, in some versions, salt. For diabetics, this simplicity is essential because it reduces exposure to artificial ingredients that can disrupt metabolic balance. One of the main differentials of Organic Valley is the use of milk from cows fed mostly on pasture. This results in more natural fat and less industrially manipulated. For people who need to control blood sugar, less processed food choices tend to be associated with more predictable glycemic responses, especially when compared to ultra-processed products. Another important point is that this butter does not contain mixtures with vegetable oils, nor emulsifiers or stabilizers. This avoids the intake of low-quality fats that, when consumed frequently, can contribute to chronic inflammation, a factor that can harm insulin sensitivity over time. Even without sugar on the label, this aspect makes a big difference for diabetics. Moreover, the richer texture and taste of Organic Valley Grass Milk Butter usually generates greater satiety. Many people end up using less quantity, which helps reduce excessive consumption of carbohydrate-rich foods that normally accompany butter, such as bread and pasta. For diabetics, this indirect effect is extremely relevant in everyday life. Finally, it is important to emphasize that, like any fat, this butter should be consumed in moderation. The advantage of Organic Valley Grass Milk Butter is not in freeing up consumption, but in offering a cleaner, more natural, and more predictable option within a conscious diet aimed at glucose control. So, to recap, these are 7 butter brands that diabetics should avoid at all costs, especially for those seeking more blood sugar control and more conscious choices in everyday life. Country Crock I Can't Believe It's Not Butter Parquet Blue Bonnet Imperial Land O'Lakes Butter Spread Country Crock Plant Butter. Despite being very popular in supermarkets in the United States, all these brands have something in common: high level of processing, use of low-quality vegetable oils, and ingredients that do not contribute to metabolic health. Even without declared sugar on the label, this type of product can disrupt the body's balance when consumed frequently. If you use any of these butters on a daily basis, perhaps this is the time to look at the label more carefully and reconsider this choice. Small decisions repeated every day make a difference, especially for those who need to take care of their glucose. And if this type of alert helps you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Here, the focus is on showing what is hidden on labels and helping you make more conscious choices at the supermarket. See you in the next video.